The last major independent interview he did, in other words, with journalists, not just his own MAGA allies on streaming, was with the NABJ. And there is some news coming out of Harris' podcast interview tonight. She did this big, unusual appearance with someone named Alex Cooper. And if you don't know her, I can tell you a heck of a lot of people do. She recently signed a $125 million deal with Sirius, which gives you an idea of her value according to media companies in today's ecosystem. Her 10 million person audience for her show beats, frankly, most political programming. She's kind of like the new Howard Stern. The show is called Call Her Daddy, and it reaches a young audience that skews female. So Harris and her campaign are doing this quite deliberately. It's a different kind of interview, which is also a window into the issues that may be breaking through for that audience. Cooper asking about J.D. Vance's attacks on women who do not have kids.
J.D. Vance called women who don't have kids childless cat ladies. What message do you think this sends to women who cannot conceive or just don't want kids?
I just think it's mean and mean-spirited. And I think that most Americans want leaders who understand that the measure of their strength is not based on who you beat down. The real measure of the strength of a leader is based on who you lift up.
The governor of Arkansas said, "My kids keep me humble." Unfortunately, Kamala Harris doesn't have anything keeping her humble.
There are a whole lot of women out here who, one, are not aspiring to be humble.
That's just some of that conversation, which is interesting, a little different. The interview is part of the broader series of interviews that include now, coming this week, the original king of radio I mentioned, Howard Stern. Now, he's hosted the president earlier this year. He's been vocally supportive of this Democratic ticket. So that's the Howard Stern interview Harris is doing coming up, plus The View, The Late Show with Colbert, and a whole Univision town hall. Now, Harris allies view this blitz that I'm telling you about as kind of a twofer. She'll reach tens of millions of people beyond the political bubble. It's also, they think, a meta demonstration that the vice president can take all kinds of questions in all kinds of forums, rebutting the GOP talking point that suggested she wasn't doing enough interviews, while, of course, Trump ducks, which we'll get to. But the other dynamic, before I turn to that, is how this campaign wants to showcase Kamala Harris's strengths. Remember, she came into this later than any nominee ever. And while she is the vice president, as I mentioned, plenty of people don't follow everything. So they want to find ways to continue to introduce her to people who follow politics less. And that means finding forums that work. Remember, Bill Clinton crushed town halls. It was his thing. His campaign was psyched to get one of the first presidential debates in that format. So they got a debate with all the energy and televised audience that brings, with Clinton talking to people in that format. Obama was better at big speeches, and the campaign prioritized them. Harris has connected with people for her kind of fun and off-the-cuff vibe. And so they're looking at how these other venues can prioritize that.
As though the body starts from the neck down.
Right.
Instead of understanding we need health care also from the neck up. I'm a gun owner. Tim Walz is a gun.
I did not know that.
If somebody breaks in my house, they're getting shot.
Yes, I hear that. I hear that.
Probably should not have said that.
Miley. Hello. Hi. How are you? I am honored.
Say this with respect. Okay. You're kind of a show off. It's like...
Those are obviously different vibes. Harris mixing that flavor with the journalistic interviews. And that brings us back to this major tradition in U.S. politics that I mentioned, a tradition that is journalistic, that is designed to be fair, to draw in the nominees from both sides in a similar forum for the kind of in-depth exchange that's different than debates or other things. I'm talking about 60 Minutes, where for many decades the giants of network news have tried to show us and draw out and also press both parties' presidential nominees.
To have reached some sort of an understanding and an arrangement.
Wait a minute. Wait a minute. You're looking at two people who love each other. This is not an arrangement or an understanding.
I'm not sitting here as some little woman standing by my man like Tammy Wynette.
They think that Congressman Ryan's budget plan is just going to drive voters their way. How do you respond to that?
Well, what I respond is very simple, and that is America has a choice.
You don't have any doubts that you're ready?
No.
Where do you get all this confidence?
My wife asks me that all the time.
Is he tough enough to be president?
But is tough being nasty? Is toughness shouting and being ugly and trying to stick a knife in somebody? Or is it principle?
Your first statement was, are you ready for tough questions?
Are you?
That's no way to talk. It's no way to talk.
Leslie, one second.
At this point, one of our producers interrupted to advise about the time remaining in the interview.
I think we have enough of an interview here, Hope. Okay, that's enough. Thanks. I'll see you in a little while. Thanks.
Be careful.
When you invest in small businesses, you invest in the middle class, and you strengthen America's economy. Small businesses are part of the backbone of America's economy.
But pardon me, Madam Vice President, the question was, how are you going to pay for it?
Well, one of the things is I'm going to make sure that the richest among us who can afford it pay their fair share in taxes.
After initially accepting a request for an interview, the Trump campaign decided they would not participate.
That is the tradition, the past, bringing you all the way up to the present. Now, Donald Trump's campaign, initially, they said, accepted the request, presumably for the reason most candidates have. 60 Minutes reaches millions of people, and you wouldn't want to cede the turf and the airtime to your opponent here in the home stretch. Yet after the initial acceptance, Trump's campaign backed out, which means tonight, millions upon millions of people will be seeing only Harris and not Trump. So why? Well, Trump's campaign admits the journalistic fact-checking was part of the reason they don't want to do it, which is striking. And I want to be as clear and fair as possible. Campaigns, government officials, they can choose how to do press. There's no requirement or rule or law here. And they can have their own views over who's fair, what topics should be emphasized. And there are many valid debates over all of that. If you deal with people who have experience in this area, we can explain how all that works. But here, the Trump aides are not even claiming some valid reason or concern about topics or something that, again, people could debate. They just admit they're worried about the facts themselves. Just like they complained that there was too much fact-checking in the single Trump-Harris debate this year. The MAGA movement treats lying for Trump now as a litmus test. Lying about the last election, maybe lying about the next one. And it's gotten to the point that Fox News, of course, by broadcasting those type of lies, ended up on the losing side of a massive defamation case. All of this is steeped within what else is going on. J.D. Vance himself admitted in front of the whole nation at his only debate that he opposed fact-checking, and the rules were negotiated differently in that debate, again, to be as fair as possible. But whatever the rules said, when a candidate admits in public that fact-checking or the entry of facts into his claims would be bad for him and his campaign, bad for the Trump-Vance ticket, that is gobsmacking. That is not normal. That hangs over all of this and tonight's announcement here from 60 Minutes that the Trump folks are afraid to put him in a forum where he can be fact-checked. As for the Vance admission, this weekend's SNL turned that obvious flag into a punchline. Democrats ended up with their nominee later than ever this year, which means the remaining time matters more for persuasion than usual. Donald Trump is still trying different ways to draw attention, including what the internet is now calling the Elon leap, as the giddy billionaire leaped with joy behind Trump there at the rally at a site where he, thankfully, avoided that assassination attempt. Musk is a big ally, but the PR-conscious Trump may not have liked all the press and memes that came out of this. Here's how some of the rally played out.
We're going to boom like we've never boomed before.
As you can see, I'm not just MAGA, I'm dark MAGA.
We will reach Mars before the end of my term. Elon promised me.
And honestly, you want to just be a pest. Just
teleprompters are very dangerous because they go off a lot. You have to be prepared for them to go off.
Be a pest to everyone you know, people on the street, everywhere. Vote, vote, vote.
The mood was jocular at times. Trump fans may feel they're in on the joke. Musk used to have less love for Trump, but now he thinks the guy might be president. Now, I want to show you how something is widely seen in the U.S., X, Twitter, as a less credible platform than it used to be. It's also a business disaster. That's just what Musk has done there. He also attacks free speech. I can tell you today he lost an effort to try to get the Supreme Court to avoid subpoenas in the Jack Smith probe. Musk's track record here is just not that great. But in Musk, Trump has found something of a safe space. This is a campaign that Trump increasingly conducts inside a kind of MAGA bubble. And the rally I just showed you had these meandering, kind of confused digressions, which often collided with logic. Trump's age and possible cognitive decline is being covered in the New York Times head-on, noting he uses more negative words than positive, an indicator of cognitive change, and they have the percent on that. Also 13% more all-or-nothing terms. He uses swear words 69% more frequently. That is a trend that it can be called, according to experts, disinhibition. So take a look at Trump in 2016, whatever you thought of his ideas and his approach, but at a cognitive level versus, as the Times pointed out, how he sounds now. The evidence shows the shift, but whether people are seeing this is a separate question. Trump himself holding many fewer rallies than his first campaign. You can see the comparison there. It is a huge change and suggests even Trump's hardcore fans who would show up for a rally are less likely to see him in this condition. So the question becomes, who is hiding out from the real questions, to cite those Republican talking points I mentioned? Yet again, part of the attack is projection. And what's happening tonight on 60 Minutes might matter just as much as what's not happening. Donald Trump ducking another independent forum.